Hi, thank you for joining me in another episode of Chad Sports Talk. In case you haven't noticed, my name's Chad, and we dive in the world of sports. In this episode, we kind of do a thought experiment with a creation of super leagues for college football. Now, Super League in this aspect is a conference with 16 members, and currently we'll have one returning to the modern football landscape with SEC when Texas and Oklahoma gets added. Probably no later than 2025. That's when the current contract with the Big 12 expires. Speculation they will use their money to buy out the $72 to $80 million buyout to get out of the rest of that deal, which I kind of think either be 2023 or 2024. The party make sure they leave before they add their three American members, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. Like I said, this is just a thought experiment, fantasy type of realm. This has been speculated a few times here and there. I think kind of bores back down to the old days of the WAC before they kind of split apart, and then the WAC just disintegrated as a football conference when they did have 16 members until they splintered into the Mountain West and WAC until the Mountain West then turned around and got back up the WAC, which led to BYU and Utah departing. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. And like I said, this is a pure thought experiment, fantasy matchups. With this, Super Leagues kind of set up. It's going to be all 16, so 8 conferences in total. There'll be no independents. So if do a quick math aspect, currently there's 130 schools in FBS, creating of 8 Super Leagues, will leave you 128 programs, leave you 2 left out. I'll let you know who those 2 are. Maybe you figured out before then, and where I think they would kind of go in this particular scenario. So let's go ahead and dive into this fantasy realm of college realignment. First, we'll start with the obvious with the SEC, and I'll also give you, for each one, I'll give you the pods. And I've already developed a pod system before. Kind of let you know the reason why I kind of did it. Kind of gives you a 9-game schedule. Lock in 6 opponents a year. Rotate 3 others. It means you go through every one in 3 years. So I'll just dive right into the SEC's pods. So you'll have in the East will be South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Auburn. Your North will be Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Mizzou. Your South being Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and LSU, and your West being Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Most of these kind of keep a lot of regional rivalries intact, and then some cross-pod action. You make sure you maintain your Iron Bowl. I mean, that's number one for SEC. You got to have that. Put a description of that over here, so that way you'll be able to check that out if you haven't already. So let's continue. We'll go with the ACC next. Technically, we're at 15 members already, because Notre Dame is in the ACC and all of their sports except for football and hockey. ACC doesn't do hockey. Just BC and Notre Dame. And they play in opposite conferences in that. But that's a different story. So this one, of course, will be a full member. Like I said, there's no independence in this FBS scenario. So to round it out, they'll go ahead and grab West Virginia. I know everyone's going, West Virginia should be there anyways, which is true. But in this one, like I said, this is pure fantasy. This is just to get to 16 and their pods. You got your South, which consists of Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson. Your Carolina pod, of course, is all your Carolina schools, North Carolina, NC State, Duke, and Wake Forest. The West pod, of course, will be Notre Dame, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and West Virginia. And your East will be BC, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. You'll still maintain a lot of these cross-divisional or cross-pod locks. So like West Virginia will always get Virginia Tech. Always continue that Black Diamond series. You always get Virginia and North Carolina, maintain that one. I mean, that's a given. And then we go to the Big Ten, who's already sitting at 14. There are 2 they grab, and I'll maintain their prerequisites. and just continue grabbing AAU programs in their region. That's Kansas and Iowa State. So their Big Ten, their pods break down. The East will be Rutgers, Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State. All makes sense. Your Central is Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, and Purdue. Your West, and this is where it kind of gets a little funky, will consist of Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa State, and Illinois. But your North will have Wisconsin, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Iowa. Illinois and Northwestern still have their annual matchup. Same thing with Iowa and Iowa State. You got to play for the Cyhawk. The game still a lock between Michigan and Ohio State. Brown, the battle for a little brown jug. Michigan, Minnesota. Michigan State and Minnesota still a thing. Illinois, Purdue, Illinois, Ohio State. So SEC, we still maintain a lot of those old school rivalries. Maybe a few that might get left off, but won't be as many. But then again, you play them every 3 years, so you still kind of keep that hatred still fresh in your mind. Now for the last one, if in case you haven't noticed, is the conference that will be going away in this particular scenario is the Big 12. Yeah, it's no fault of their own. It's just happen to be location. So for the Pac-12 to get to 16, they had I definitely had a little hard time to figure out which four from the Big 12 they're going to snag. Will they grab some of the newer members? Do they just kind of go with the old school? I just kind of went with the mainstay, and unfortunately, that left one of them outside looking in. And it's probably not the ones you're probably thinking of, so I just went ahead and went with Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, TCU, and BYU. It's just to give them that Texas market and just maintain that Texas connection, and just left it there. And the bar trying to grab BYU, which I think would be a better fit in this particular scenario. I just kind of went with these schools that were considered Power 5 prior to the Big 12 expansion. So that means BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston were all left out. This leaves one. Not left one current member to get left out, and that was Kansas State. No fault against them. It's just happened to be location. That's all it was. Location. You could probably easily switch out K-State with maybe Baylor. Baylor may be a little too hardline private institution for the Pac-12, liberal mindset. So, that could be a possibility as well. So, in terms of looking at that, I broke it down with their pods, pretty geographically located in the Northwest, having the Washingtons, Oregons, your coastals, of course, all Cali. Your mountain will have all your four corner schools, the Arizonas, Utah, and Colorado, and the Southwest. So it consists of all the former Big 12 programs of Tech, TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. All right, and then go to the flip side and go into the group of four schools that kind of a little harder and thought experiment-wise to kind of figure out the best positions and whatnot for particular conferences to move forward, and for which conference that will end up folding or getting removed in this particular scenario. And I'll go ahead and just throw this out there, and I'll say Conference USA is the one that I took out in this particular scenario. You can leave them in. They kind of build from that. That's fine as well. But I kind of looked at them and just removed them from the process. So we'll start out west with the Mountain West, and they maintained 11 of their 12. Air Force is no longer in the Mountain West, so to replace Air Force and expand out, they went ahead and grabbed UTEP. UTEP has a long history with a lot of these schools anyways from the old WAC days, especially the rivalry with New Mexico, and then brought in Texas State, North Texas, Tulsa, and Rice. To break them down, particular pods, in the East pod would be Tulsa, North Texas, Texas State, and Rice. Mountain would be UTEP, New Mexico, Colorado State, Wyoming. Your north would be Boise State, Utah State, Nevada, UNLV. And of course the west would be Hawaii, San Diego State, San Jose State, and Fresno State. for the MAC, that was another one to kind of figure out where was the MAC going to go? Were they going to go south, like maybe grab Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee? Would they go east? Go back into England with UMass and UConn. Welcome back Marshall. I mean, it was kind of hard for me to kind of figure out where to go in this particular setup. So I looked at it. Okay, this core 12. And then they went ahead and welcome back Marshall. They did go to New England, but only grabbed UConn. And then they also went into Virginia and grabbed Old Dominion and Liberty. So they kind of went east and south at the exact same time. I think that probably be the best option for the MAC. It's trying to do that type of movement. And for them, I went ahead and in their pod systems, the east maintain all 4 new members of UConn, Liberty, Old Dominion, Marshall. The north is Buffalo and the Michigans, Eastern, Central, Western. Your south will be Ohio, Miami, Kent State, Akron, while the west considered Northern Illinois, Ball State, Toledo, and Bowling Green. So you can see each kind of pod has their own little power school in there, so to kind of help balance that one out. Now for the Sun Belt, they pretty much stayed intact, minus, the loss of Texas State. So then they grabbed, from Conference USA, Louisiana Tech, Southern Miss, Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Charlotte, Western Kentucky, and Middle Tennessee. Now, 4 of those schools used to be in the Sun Belt anyways, so that's the reason why I kind of let the Conference USA get split up, because of that particular aspect. And then for their pods, for the expanded Sun Belt, this thought experiment does not include the basketball-only members of these conferences. So like Little Rock, Texas Arlington, and Wichita State are not included. They'll go off their own direction for that one. But anyways, for the West Pod, for the Sun Belt, it's Arkansas State, Louisiana Tech, Louisiana, and Louisiana Monroe. The South, Southern Miss, Troy, South Alabama, Georgia State. Your North will be Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, App State, and Charlotte. And then your East will be Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Florida Atlantic, and Florida International. So, I think pretty much along lines, party lines for that conference. It seems pretty simple. They still go from, East Coast to the Mississippi Valley. They just don't go into Texas. And for the American, this one definitely is an American conference. Then they welcome in, Kansas State, who got left off of joining of the Power 4, BYU, Air Force, Army. Then you bring up UTSA and UAB. Got to round out that particular conference. And for their West Pod, it will consist of Houston, Kansas State, BYU, and Air Force. As you know, 3 of those schools will now be concluded in the Big 12. So we'll have that. For the South, it's going to be UAB, Tulane, UTSA, and SMU. So there's a lot of, animosity there. SMU and Tulane are part of the American. Tulane has rivalries with UAB. So a little bit of that going on. For the North, you have Cincinnati, Memphis, Army, and Temple. In the East is Navy, East Carolina, Central Florida, South Florida. So I ensured all 3 service academies are in separate pods. That way they still maintain their region, their annual matchups for the Commander Chiefs Trophy. Pretty much the same exact setup I have with my SEC pods season setup, where you should take on your pod for each game. That's 3 plus 1 lock in each other pod. Gives you 3 more. Then you rotate between the pods. Give you your 9 conference games, and you can match those pods up together to create your quote-unquote divisions. And there's your championship matchup. So ensure you kind of check out that video. I did provide that link earlier. And then, in case you haven't realized, the 2 schools that got kind of left off was New Mexico State and UMass. Now, with New Mexico State, I could have put them in the Mountain West. I originally did. However, then it's like, okay, with UMass, who else do you leave out? Do you take out Liberty? Do you take out UConn? So I a hard choice, but I was looking at overall performance in the past few years. I think New Mexico State's only been like the one bowl game. It was in like 10, 20 year time frame. So it was an easy choice to get them out and have them go back to the FCS and get their football program into the WAC. They're already members of the WAC anyways. WAC just restarted the football conference, or sponsoring football, especially when they start, snagging teams up from the Southland to kind of build up their numbers. Have New Mexico State go in there, build back up their football program, put a little meat on those bones. And WAC's talking about moving up anyways to the FBS. Might as well do that. And then the other one's UMass. Since they joined the FBS, they have not been very good. So for them, they even had a stint in the MAC, and they couldn't really compete in the MAC. So for them to go back to the FBS, I think is the logical choice for them. Even though I think putting another school in that, having their FBS program in that area would actually be beneficial. But UMass is not pulling their weight to be the FBS member at this time. So I had them going back to the Colonial. But that's my take on the Super Leagues. College Football Chronicle, he was a big influence of that one. He created a few scenarios kind of like this before on his channel. That's the reason why I wanted to create the channel in the first place, to kind of provide my 2 cents in this crowded little world of college realignment and thought experiments. Well, thank you for listening to my old man rant and my thought experiment and spilling out my scenario for the Super Leagues. I do have other ones coming where I just create total chaos and just create 10-team conferences, 12-team conferences. Original ones, fantasy creations. So I'll have those coming out in later time frames when nothing else is really cooking out there. So hit that thumbs up for me. Give me a like. Become a subscriber if you wish. Then you hit that notification bell for next time I create a new videos. Leave me your comments as well. See if, what you like about this, what you didn't like about this. I understand, everyone has their own opinion for this particular thought. I know, especially for this K-State fans, they're not going to be happy with this video at all, and I completely understand that one. Sorry. But hey, just let me know, and I'll see you soon on the next episode of Chat Sports Talk.